So this refers to the process of moral reasoning and the moral point of view, the so-called moral point of view. Uh, Remember that the pursuit of peace and justice happening within the corridor of liberty uh, empowers citizens uh, to participate politically in an important, very essential dimension of our participation in our political participation is our capacity for moral reasoning and moral deliberation. So moral reasoning and judgment is about the deliberation and the offering of reasons that justify our claims. Uh, Justification refers to offering reasons that support the validity for one's claims. So when we make a claim of what is right or wrong, what is good or evil, what is just or unjust, what is fair or unfair, we're making a claim or a set of claims. And just as in empirical science, our proposition and claims require uh, justification in terms of their validity, that is, their truth. Uh, the same is true for normative claims, ethical and moral claims of right and wrong, of good and evil, of justice and injustice. However, we resort to different standards and different methods of justification in the moral and ethical realm, in the normative realm. But in the same way, all our claims, all of our normative claims require justification. And these, that is, we need to test the normative validity of our claims. And that test or tests proceed from a perspective, a point of view that have specific presuppositions that define it. And what we call that the moral point of view. Uh, the moral point of view, as Kurt Baer, the philosopher, put it in this quotation, our moral convictions are true if they can be seen to be required or accepted from the moral point of view. And the moral point of view finds its grounding in what Immanuel Kant put forth as human dignity, that the presupposition of human dignity, equal inherent value, is foundational to morality and justice. And he expressed that in terms of what he called the categorical imperative, which reads, act in such a way that you always treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, never simply as a means, but always at the same time as an end, end quote. This principle expresses a moral duty to respect for persons, that we respect the inherent value and dignity of each person. And these human dignity and respect are basic moral convictions that form the moral point of view. They are this moral point of view of dignity, equal dignity, and respect is further elaborated by John Rawls and others in terms of the idea of fairness, that respect and equality are grounded in the standards of fairness. And there are at least three interconnected criteria that constitute the meaning of fairness, which we'll discuss further: impartiality, generality, and reciprocity. So I want to stop here, and I'd like you to discuss the following question. What does it mean to be fair? The question, what it means to be fair, which we just discussed. And this was my my reflection on the meaning of fairness based upon a variety of literature and my own thought and experience. One, it is not to be biased in favor of one's exclusive self-interest, which is impartiality, which many of you identify. To be fair also is to take others' interests into account, to listen to them, to seriously consider, to take into consideration the interests of others. Also to acknowledge and abide by the reasonable disagreement of others, which is the idea of reciprocity. One of the elements of reciprocity is to really take seriously the disagreement of others. And this is expressed in the philosophical literature as reasonable rejectability as a standard of reciprocity. That if others have strong disagreement to what we're proposing, then to be fair, we should at least consider them, but also maybe revise our own point of view and our own claim based upon their strong disagreement, if that disagreement is reasonable, if it has valid reasons behind it. Also, another aspect of reciprocity and thus fairness is to not to claim something as right for oneself, but to deny the same claim to others. So if I say I have a right to liberty, a full-scale liberty, but others do not, to deny them the same right that I'm claiming is to be unfair, and therefore my claim fails on the grounds of unfairness. And that's a kind of reciprocity. We can't, it's really unfair to claim something for oneself that you deny for others. Also, and that fairness requires that we offer valid justifications for our claims and actions to others that affect them, that we provide reasons for our claims and our actions. And that's, as we'll discuss later, the idea of a right to justification. That'll be translated into a human right to receive justification for claims and actions that affect one. Also, when we're in deliberation with others and justifying our claims, we should use terms that are understandable, that is mutually recognizable and acceptable to others. And that's the element of generality, that we shouldn't speak in a language that can't be understood by the others we're deliberating with, or reach for reasons that are that don't make sense or that are not understandable by others. And this is a kind of generality, is a kind of good faith, interacting with others in good faith, as well as being honest with them, to make not to be honest or deceitful in our deliberations is a part of fairness, because to lie or to deceive is to disrespect the addressee, our addressees that we're talking to. There's probably many more aspects to fairness, but these are some of the central ones, I believe. And they've been philosophically explored by a number of moral and political philosophers as foundational to considerations of right and wrong, good and evil, justice and injustice. In fact, we can look at the process of moral deliberation in terms of fairness, that fairness having these particular elements and criteria, we can look at our moral convictions like equality, like equal opportunity, like the rule of law, etc., and examine, reflect on our basic moral convictions, and to see if they are compatible with or consistent with the elements of fairness. And once we have a set of moral convictions, we can turn to our principles and norms. We can justify principles and norms based upon our fair moral convictions. And then based upon reasonable and fair principles, then laws, policies, and institutions can be established and enacted that are just. And we'll be exploring this cycle of moral deliberation in much greater depth in the next few weeks in terms of human rights as principles, and as well as the principles of distributive justice that are basic to the laws, policies, and institutions of a just and peaceful society. So this is a basic process of moral deliberation that's anchored. It's anchored in the foundation of fairness, as we'll see. This cycle proceeds on the basis of a process of what John Rawls called reflective equilibrium. Reflective equilibrium is a process of reflecting on the consistency or the coherence between fairness, our considered convictions, and then the coherence between fairness and our considered convictions and the principles of justice that we endorse as right, that serve as the fair terms of social cooperation, that regulate the basic structure of society. And then the application of those principles to the establishment and evaluation of institutions, laws, policies, norms, etc. So the idea is that all of these levels of moral deliberation should cohere together. They should be in a coherence with each other. And the validity of our convictions and our principles, and thereby our laws and policies and institutions, find their foundation in the elements of fairness. So this is a conception of justice, as we'll see, as justice as fairness. It also involves this moral deliberation also involves the critique of the critical assessment of invalid, culturally violent normative justifications or ideologies that serve to justify and sustain injustice in society and in the world. And so we can use this process of moral deliberation and the elements of fairness and the principles of justice as tools or as a means to critique and possibly reject the invalid, culturally violent justifications, that they will not survive moral scrutiny from this perspective. And that's very important for the pursuit of justice and the resistance to injustice in the world, which we'll discuss at length going forward.